Hey there, welcome to SharkCast Pod, a podcast dedicated to the greatest sporting club in the history of the entire universe, including the world. My name is Sam Shinazzi, and this is Catching Up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla, brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the legends at the Royal Motor Yacht Club in Port Hacking, and our good mate Jason Hawes at Cripps and Cripps Real Estate. We encourage you to support those businesses that support us. On the other end of this podcast is a man who needs no introduction because the show is based around him, Mr. Kieran Fraser, longtime Sharks fan, good mate of ours. And Kieran, I was going to message you this morning. Our teams went for it in the NFL at a very early time slot, and you're an early riser. And basically what happened in the first quarter was your team ran the ball for like 7 minutes. Not that well, but just ran it for 7 minutes, even though you got a fantastic running back. And I was going to text you because it was 0-0, and I was going to say, fly, Eagle, fly. It should be more run, Eagle, run. And I was going to razz you, but I held off. And then Jalen Hurts threw an 80-yard touchdown to AJ, what's his name? And that was all she wrote. So I'm glad I didn't razz you about that. Welcome to your show. How are you doing on this Monday morning, my friend?
Well, hopefully that puts to bed some of the rumors that Mr. Brown's unhappy at Philadelphia because he's been quite upset with how much they're running the ball recently, and he's not getting a lot of balls because they have two of the best wide receivers in the game, and they don't get a lot of action, right? So hopefully that calms down. But truth be told, I haven't seen the game yet. I did see some comments on Instagram saying that maybe that Brown was complaining that it was only an 80-yard touchdown pass. It should have been 100. But outside of that, mate, life is good. It's nice weather in the Shire at the moment.
Yeah, it's certainly turned. We're certainly hitting spring, and I've spent the week sneezing, and I've recovered from that, which is great. Caught a WWE event, but we're here to talk about the Sharks. We can talk about that stuff later on. How are you feeling? Couple of weeks into the off season, so to speak. How are you feeling about things that went down in Melbourne and we saw the great grand final? We spoke about that, but how are you feeling now a couple of weeks later?
Yeah, I still think it's a season of what ifs. There's about 8 points there. I think that they lost games right on the line, or lost to, say, the Roosters when it was their New South Wales Cup team, and the team that actually got the spot ahead of us was the Broncos, right? And the Broncos finished top 4. And again, it just proves how valuable that top 4 is. Like if they had won one of those games, they held on against Canberra, or they held on against the Tigers. The whole final series is completely different. Like the Broncos don't finish top 4, they don't play the Panthers, and all that type of stuff that doesn't happen, right? So yeah, it's a real season of what ifs, and I've seen a few of the players around the Shire and stuff like that, and it's just, I look at the Sharks store and I just kind of go, well, when are we getting this thing back going again? Because, I need it. I miss it. It takes up so much of the week, right? And now without it, I'm a bit bored, The cricket hasn't started yet properly and all that type of stuff.
We're not talking about cricket on this podcast. Now, I can tell you that I ran into Big BHU and his beautiful little boy down at Mr. Paisley's, who supply us with a coffee. I've got one right here. I know you're without, but I've got mine.
One of the great spots.
And BHU said early December. Now, I don't know if that means obviously the entire team is back before that, but he's back. I'm pretty sure I don't think he said early November. I think he said early December. Maybe I'm misquoting him. But he looks in good form. He's ready to rip in. He's not going anywhere despite the rumors. But we'll be back before you know it. But, yeah, there was some international games, Kieran, on the weekend already. There's about 3 or 4 weeks of rugby league, both men's and women's. And we saw Ronaldo and Britain Nickera play for New Zealand, did pretty well. And have to give a huge shout out to Shante Kiraratu, our NRLW halfback, who absolutely put on a show for her country of choice in the women's test match as well. So there are Sharks out there playing, and there's more coming up this week. Obviously, Blake Brayley, we're hoping will get on the bench somewhere when they play, but there is still football on, and it's actually pretty entertaining. So I do encourage you to go check out the highlights from that. And if you can watch it live this week, do it. You won't regret it. A lot of emotion, a lot of passion, as you can imagine, and just a way to keep the void away from you. So we are here, though, to talk about the mighty Cronulla Sharks. And about a week and a half ago, Clinton Maynard and I did our player ratings, and we want to do a little bit more with you, Keiran. I'll stay out of it pretty much, but we'd like you to go through your players. You don't have to give us essays, or you can. It's up to you, my friend. We're going to do it alphabetically. And I would just like, at the very least, a brief summation and a score out of 10, I think we were doing. And anything more, please feel free to do it. Obviously, there'll be more on some than others. But let me start with Dan Atkinson, who played 16 games, including one starting game, his last season for the Sharks, out of 10. And if you can't rank these guys for whatever reason, that's okay. But Dan Atkinson, go.
Look, I think he was a victim of circumstance, right? I was actually surprised he played 16 games, but then I remembered a lot of those games were that real strange coming off the bench type situation that he was in. I think probably not the same season as the season before. When I think of Daniel Atkinson's season this year, I think of that Melbourne game where he was on the wing and they really targeted him. And that was kind of where I was like drawing a line through him as like an outside back utility option. But other than that, like I don't think the situation he found himself was conducive to him putting in a great season, right? So a shame that he's leaving. It would have been great to see him battle out that fullback spot with Mr. Kennedy, but just seems like that wasn't on our radar. I give him a 6.
All right, next up is our current captain, Mr. Blake Brayley, who played all 27 games, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to jump into some statistics on this one. He's now our most capped number 9 in Cronulla Sharks history, right? So I think now that he's got that captaincy, that's not something that's going to come off his back, especially when Cam comes back. I think that he'll keep that role. Signed a long-term deal with us, made his Australian squad debut. He hasn't played yet, but you would assume he would get a game at some point in this series. I don't know how they're going to work that out, though. Like, let's say game 3 is a decider. Like, do you still play like a guy like Brayley just for the sake of it to give him a game? Because there's only 3 tests. So hopefully he gets a New South Wales jersey next year. I give Blake a solid 10 out of 10 this year. I don't think you could have asked for anything more from Blake.
Amazing. How good. Now, I'm not going to go over what I did because you can go back and listen to the episode with Clinton. But I just for an example, I think I gave Atco a 6 and I gave Blake a 9 or maybe 9.5. So you're the first to go with a 10, and I'm happy for you to do that. Next up, a man who started 13 games in a bit of a twist in what the season was going to be, played 17 all up, 4 magical tries, including one in his second last game in Canberra. The cult hero, now on his honeymoon, getting personal, Mr. Billy Burns.
Yeah, I think Burns probably would have got an 8 if he had a stronger performance in Melbourne. There was a couple of incidents in that game where I think that role kind of took its toll on him. But again, value for money, dependability, I think reliability was the word I was looking for there, not dependability.
Sure.
But a tremendous season for him. I think he's set himself up super geez, my words aren't coming freely today. I think he set himself up really well for the expansion teams that are coming into the competition. So I think he set himself up. I give him a 7.5. But again, I think this will probably be the last 12 months that we have with him.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I think he'll be a Bear.
Okay. Billy Burns, the Bear. Next up, we have former cult hero and now probably just a part of the furniture, playing 18 games, which would absolutely thrill him, starting 5 of those, and that is Mr. Jesse Colquhoun.
Colquhoun had a fantastic season for mine. I really liked him in that starting role. It's a job that I think that he can definitely hold on to. I think it changed the complete dynamics of the way that we attacked. I think, if I give Burns a 7.5, I can't give him a higher rating than Burns, but I think a 7 is probably fair for Colquhoun. Again, if we got a little bit more of him as a starter, I think he could have scored a little bit higher. But again, for his age, the value on his contract, he's a guy that we need to. Did we lock him up recently? But if he's off contract, we've got to make sure that he's sorted out pretty soon.
All right. In his first year at the Sharks, he is another Iron Man, Iron person. Aden Fanua-Blake playing all 27 games, scoring 6 tries, including one in Las Vegas right in front of our very own eyes.
Yeah, it's funny. Like he won Dally M Prop of the Year with Payne Haas, but there was still a lot of noise during the season that people were expecting more or wanted more. I mean, I thought he was a tremendous addition to our team. I think he gives us a lot of confidence when you go into games, and when you look at our roster in years gone by where we've made the finals, it's such a difference when you have Aden Fanua-Blake as your starting front rower. Um, I give him an 8. I think there was still room for improvement there. I think he was getting his feel into the Sharks style, the Sharks systems. But in terms of value for money, I think he absolutely delivered. And, there's not many other front rowers that I would swap him for, put it that way.
He also won Shark of the Year, don't forget. Stole it out of the grasp of Blake Brayley's hand. So,
yeah. I mean, look, for you, Sam, like, is there anything that you think that he didn't do this year? I think people just had this expectation that he would just win games single-handedly, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, and I've been trying to talk people down since day one. In fact, and I'm going to name and shame him because I know he loves us doing it. Half-time in Las Vegas, Josh from Queensland came up to Josh from Guy Meir and myself. And he was like, I don't know about Fanua-Blake in this first half. And look, I haven't watched that first half back for a long time. I'm just razzing Josh from Queensland. But from that moment on, I was saying to everyone, no, he's doing great. And then obviously that second half, he was great. And there's not much more I would really want from him. Maybe you could criticize him for some of the sort of moments where he lost his cool with a penalty here or there, but I don't really have a problem with it, to be honest. That's me picking at things, really. Like it wasn't a 10 out of 10, but I think I'd have to go listen back to what I said, but it would be an 8.5 to 9. Like he was, for me, super professional, super impressive. We heard, rumors about how at his past clubs he sort of fell out a little bit, and there's no real proof of that to a great degree. But all I saw down at Cronulla was a guy who's locked in, his cousin's there, and no, there's not much more he could do for me. So
he integrated really well, part of the furniture now, and hopefully he retires a Shark.
I like what you said, though, like about, he was probably finding his way in our system. Like that can take a while. I'm not saying it can take a year, but I think throughout the year he got better and finished super strong. So
it's also like how he runs onto the ball with, say, Blake Brayley, right? And Fafita and Michael Ennis talked about this, and Fafita tells that story where they walked over Shark Park, and Michael Ennis was literally had a ball in his hand, said, "How do you like it at this position? Where do you want your hands to be?" That type of thing, right? So I just think those little nuances take a little bit of time, right? But great signing in my opinion.
Absolutely. All right, next we have a gentleman who played 21 games all up, just 2 starting. A season that was fractured a little bit with injury, but came really good towards the end, and we've spoken already about him. He's a local at Mr. Paisley's, Mr. Braden Hamlin-Welly.
I think his back end of the season was super strong. There were some really good performances in there. And you kind of saw the guy that made the rep teams in the past, and you sort of say, well, look, he's a real asset for us, especially if he's going to be your 3rd or 4th best front rower. Again, he goes on the open market in 11 days or so, and there will be clubs that will be throwing their checkbook at him, right? I think for us, it's probably not a situation where we can get in a bidding war for him. I think given his age and what we've got in the middle, I think we're going to have to probably say goodbye to him. But look, I think I have very high expectations for BHU because he's one of my favourite Sharks, and I think he should be a starting front rower for us. Put it that way. We spoke a couple of weeks ago saying we want that guy to be put his hand up to be with Fanua-Blake as the other front rower. In my opinion, Braden has it in him. It's just been a combination of form, injuries, and that type of stuff that's held him back. I'll probably give him a 6.5 as well. Just because I do have higher expectations for him.
All right. Next up, a gentleman who only played 6 games. So if you want to judge him, you can. If you don't want to, you can skip it. But that is Big Tuku Haitapua. 6 games off the bench.
Well, he's getting a 10. because he said he knew me from SharkCast when we ran into him at Melbourne. Now, I don't believe him for a second. I think he was just being very polite. But I think you still do rate these players because, again, it's their attitude that they show. And when they get their opportunities, do they make the most of it, right? So it's hard to give him a super high score because his options were limited. But every time he got a chance, I thought he put his hand up to say, look, there's a reason why I'm here. I think it's going to be super interesting to see what he does in terms of contract and things like that, because he's probably in that mid-20s now, and it's kind of now or never, and he can't really be stuck behind Fanua Blake, Toby, Kafusi, and the likes. It's going to be an interesting one. But if I gave Braden a 6.5, I'll probably have to give Tooks a 6, just because of limited opportunity.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to watch because he has all the potential in the world. The limited time we've seen him, he's been pretty good. Yeah. So you're right. Like, it's up to him kind of what he wants to do. Does he want to stick around and try and hope that he gets his shot, or he could go to another club and probably be an instant kind of benchy? So at the moment, the Sharks got a pretty big lure over these guys. They tend to want to stick around and bide their time. So hopefully for our sake he does, because he's got a lot of potential. There's not many guys like him in the NRL with that physique. So wait and see on what he's going to do. A guy who only played 13 games, unfortunately, and that was tall Tom Hazelton.
Yeah, a season that was interrupted by injuries, a season that had a little bit of noise over it about his contract situation. Was he going to stay? The Warriors were in for him at one point. The Knights were in for him at one point, according to the media. I don't think he hit the heights of years gone by, but I'm glad we've kept him. And I think he's got that potential to be that other front row with Fanua Blake, but we need to see it, right? So, again, if I gave Braden a 6.5, I think, Hazelton's probably sitting a little bit ahead of that. I give Tom a 7, but I just think the injuries really affected him. And I think that when he came back into the team, you actually did see a noticeable improvement. And so I think that injury that he had, the long-term one, actually affected us more than we realized. So, yeah, I'll give him a 7.
Yeah, I think I went slightly higher. I thought when he was there, he was very effective, and he showed a maturity that you want to see a year on. And we just looked a bit more dominant with a guy like him on the field. He's sort of tightened up his defense, and I was pretty happy with Tall Tom, just unfortunate with the injuries. Next up, we have a player who scored 5 tries, a couple of breakout games in the 9 games, and that was Mawini Hiroti.
Well, again, the scale that I have to use for Mr. Hiroti is value for money, dependability. There was calls for him to take the starting center spot over Jesse Ramian towards the end of the season. A guy that you can literally plug and play into fullback, wing, center. Another guy who I think, if I'm an expansion club, I'm going after pretty hard. I think value for money, I think he gets a 7 for his season, for his contributions. Always been ready when he's called on, could drop in at an instant in any of those positions. Yeah, I think he had a really solid year.
All right, next up, another Iron person, Iron Man, if you will. He is our often talked about halfback, the king of carrying bar, Nicho Hynes.
Yeah, this is another one that when you look at the stats, they were incredible. And the noise is not at the same level as the stats. And
no.
Look, I think the thing that I liked about Nicho the most was the end of the season, right? When things were getting into the pressure cooker, he looked at it head on and he went after it, right? And, there were some really good performances throughout the year, but I just really liked that switch that he kind of flicked towards the end of the season where he was just like, all right, well, look, this is why I'm getting paid the big bucks and I'm going to take us to that next level. We didn't get it done. We finished, a game short of the grand final, but there's a few moments I think you would have liked back. There's a little bit of a lull there around that West Tigers game where he almost kicked that field goal from halfway. And I was at that game and I just thought if he had nailed that field goal,
man, can you imagine?
Sky high.
Can you imagine? Like, that would, in a just world, that would be repeated every week on various rugby league shows. Like, It was just one of those things. But also,
Yeah,
let's
it
not
was
forget, he
very
should have
different.
got that penalty. The NRL came out. He should have got the penalty for being clipped or whatever before that. So anyway,
Yeah. So, but look, I think
next.
you take that, right, with the little lull that he had after that game and around that period, and there was a few moments that we should have dominated against the Roosters, didn't happen. But again, to come back from that to still very good stats wise, everything like that. His defense towards the end of the year was rock solid. I give him an 8.
All right, 8 for Nico Hines. Love it. All right, a man who did suffer a half-season injury. He's back. He played for the Cook Islands on the weekend, scored an amazing try in a losing team. Mr. KL Iro also had the name change. KL.
He also was the captain of the Cook Islands. I don't know if you saw that, but yeah,
I
so he
saw
was
it.
the captain of the Cook Island. And if you get a chance, chuck it into Google and read the article where he talks about growing up. He spoke at school about how all he wanted to do was play for the Cook Islands, how he's eligible, I think, for England, Australia, New Zealand. But he said the
Yeah.
only jersey he ever wants to wear is the Cook Islands, and that's number one for him. And for a player of his talent to be so early in his career and be so dedicated to a smaller nation like that is just phenomenal and so good for the game, right? On the field, I feel so much better about our defense when he's on the field. I feel better about our attack when he's on the field. He is quickly becoming one of my favorite Sharks. I would put him at about an 8 for the season. I think he's so dependable. And I think the best is yet to come for him as well, because he's still only played 30, 40 NRL games. Like, his ceiling is so high for me.
Yeah, I agree. He's so mature in what is a fairly young career, and had some ups and downs already, but just that attitude that, as you said, he could have played for New Zealand. I think he was offered the New Zealand jumper this time around, and he was like, no, I'm a Cook Islands boy. So got to
Unreal.
respect that. Next up, one of your personal favorites. He only played half the season, but in that half season, he managed 7 spectacular tries. He is our finals clutch player, and that is Sione Katoa.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of a slow start coming back from injury. Stone Street held that spot down for a while. There was a couple of clanger errors that whenever you see blooper reels on Instagram, stuff like that, Sione's unfortunately in that with that dummy to nobody where he was coming out of trouble. And I don't know what happened there. There was a few games where, people were calling out that he was going to get really targeted. I think talk about the Daniel Tupou game. I talk about Xavier Coates down in Melbourne. I think he put his gloves up in both those performances. I don't think he got pantsed in any real game this year. His carries on kick returns. It was the game against Canberra, actually, where he got absolutely monstered all game. And they were putting hard shots on him. Gets up, plays the ball, gets a quick play the ball, and goes again, right? He's so important to our team. It's going to be super interesting. I'm going to say this a lot, but again, off contract November 1st. It's going to be so interesting to see what we do there. Stone Street's re-signed for 1 year. Where does that land? I think Sione, a very solid season. I give him a 7.7.
7.7.
So a bit above a 7.5.
Do you think if we sign Sione, say, for 1 year as opposed to 2 or 3, just for an argument's sake, does that say much about what they think about Stone Street, or is it not related?
Well, Sione's just turned 28, right? So his birthday's in August. So next year he'll play most of the season as a 28-year-old, right? So if you then re-sign him, you're then looking to re-sign a guy who's going to be 29. I think the wing is a young man's game. Sione's still, I think, still fast. I think he's still great getting the ball down. One of the best finishers in the comp. I don't understand some of the talk that he isn't fast. I think if you ever see Sione in open space, he's actually quite dangerous. I think with Stone Street, it's a make or break year for him, right, in his career for where he wants to be. There's upside there, but there's also a chance that he goes off to England. So, or an expansion club or whoever it is, right? Because again, it's now at that age where there's talented players coming through Jersey Flag, New South Wales Cup, all that type of stuff, right? So you can't just keep Sam there. I think I can see the club going down the Stone Street way. I'm just thinking dollars, cents, youth versus age. But if it was me picking a team, and again, we're talking about picking a team for 2027, because that's when that decision would have to be made. For 2026, I'm picking Sione over Stone Street every day. 2027, there's a lot of water under that bridge to make that decision, that call now. But I think it's going to be very telling. If they give him a 2-year deal, then I think that's the end of Stone Street.
I mean, hopefully Sam comes out and has an amazing off season, and he puts up a legitimate reason for them to sort of either debate
absolutely
who's going to be on the wing or who's going to be the wing in 27. So let's see how that plays out. Oregon Kaufusi is up next, 22 games. He started 17 of those. Am I reading that right? Yes, I am. So 17 starts for 22 games. Oregon Kaufusi.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Some of the performances there were a little bit not unnoticeable, but sometimes you get to the end of the game and you have to go check the stats to actually see what he actually did in the game, because he's not a player that's going to make these huge hits, or he's not going to do these huge runs or anything like that, but he just gets through his work, right? And a lot of it is the tough, gritty stuff that nobody wants to do. And he is extremely physical. He's very good in the wrestle. It's hard for me to put a rating on this guy because, again, his role is as such. It's an unnoticeable role, but it's an important role, right? Yeah. And does he make our best 17 if everybody's fit, based on how we finished the year, right? Because, again, Hazleton got the job over him, and it's not a knock on Kaufusi, but I think it's just more so that, he started the year probably as the second best prop, and then he finished the year, I would argue, probably behind Toby, even though Toby didn't have the best game in Melbourne. I think before that, Toby had a couple of very good performances.
Yeah.
If I've given Hamlin-Uele a 6.5, and again, this is hard to do these ratings because I feel like I'm giving out good scores, but the reality is we finished where we finished. So it's hard to nail these players and give them bad scores. It's a pass mark for me. But again, I look at it and I go, we need more from Kaufusi. And what that looks like, sometimes you see it with the offloads and things like that. When they're firing, I think it was the Manly game over in Perth, he popped up a couple of really good ones that kind of changed things for us. I give him a 7.
All right. Next up, we have a man who has a freshly inked contract, but only for 1 year. He is an Iron Man person as well. Whoever's training these boys down there doing a good job. Mr. Will Kennedy.
So, again, I haven't heard that in a while. I jumped on the Rugby League Project website because I thought, where does Will sit in Shark history?
We should give Andrew a shout out. Andrew's better half is a big listener of the show. Andrew himself is not a Shark, but he was wise enough to choose a Shark to live his life with. So, Rugby League Project.
Part of the Melbourne crew down there, I believe. And I jumped on Rugby League Project, and I just thought, where does he sit in terms of games played at fullback for the Sharks? He is our 5th most games played. Is that how you say it? He's
most capped.
Most capped. Yeah, he's number 5. And he's only, I think, 5 games behind Mullane to take over number 3. Sorry, he's actually number 4. So, yeah, he's a chance to jump into the 3rd in Sharks history in terms of games played at fullback.
Right.
Now, it doesn't feel like that, does it?
Well, not with all the crap that he cops, for starters.
Well, and again, I went back through our history and I looked at it and I thought, how many games do you how many fullbacks have we really used? And I'm not going to go through how many fullbacks we've used, but if you've played 10 games at fullback for the Sharks, you're in our top 26 of all time. So it's a position we haven't had a lot of change in.
Wait, you mean top 26 fullbacks?
So what I'm saying is games played, right? So if you played 10 games at fullback at the Sharks, you would be the 26th most capped fullback in the Sharks' history. This is a club that's been around for over 50 years, right? And so you look at some of the names that are on
so Brett Carney is,
Valentine Holmes is number 10 at 42. You got Brett Carney there at 32 at number 12. A guy like Ben Simmons, 31 at 15. Benny Barber, 16, 30. So I guess where I'm going with this is... Ben
Simmons or David Simmons?
David Simmons. I was looking at Ben Barber as well, who's one below him, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at that and you go, Will's played 100 and 38 games at fullback for us, right? The next
Really?
number 5 on that list is 71. So he's almost double the guy who's sitting in 5th, and he's sitting in 4th. He's about to go into 3rd. And if you think about that in terms of all-time list, you would expect someone that's coming, say, 3rd on the list to be a club legend, one of the greats, all that type of stuff. But I think it just speaks to the consistency of Will and the fact that this squad has been so stable for such a long time that he's going to probably finish up either the 2nd or 3rd most games played at fullback at the Sharks. Now, I don't think anyone else on that list, especially in the top 5, has gone through as many critiques and criticisms and questioning their different parts of the game, their defense, blah, blah, blah. But I think it just sums up Will. He's such a hard person to allocate the right level of accolades to, as well as criticism, because some of the things that he gets criticized on are absolutely valid. And some of the efforts that you see, you go, I get why they want to make a change. But also the fact that he's been so consistent, that he's sitting on that part of history, I think is so interesting. He started the season off with a bang. He was leading the Dally M's. He, again, went through another bit of a lull himself. I have no idea how he went through the contract noise. Like, if the reports are true, and again, I don't know that these numbers are true, but if you read what they say on Fox Sports, they say he was on 700, he's now on 350, or 600, now on 300, whatever the case.
It was closer to like 550-ish, but it was not what he's on now, yes.
That's a huge pay cut, right? And now you take your ego aside, because that's a huge pill to swallow after having a good season on the field. To take a pay cut like that when you have 2 young kids, Cronulla is an expensive place to live. The Shire is expensive. Like, insane amount of head noise that would go into that, right? You talk about your budgeting, like, it's a cost of living crisis. This guy's literally cut his paycheck almost in half to stay at the club. Now, you can say he doesn't have any other options and all that type of stuff, but mentally, that's a huge thing to go through. And, you know, it's not sprung on him, but come November 1st, when these new contracts kick in, he's literally going to be getting almost half of what he was getting paid this year. Right. Yeah. So his paycheck on October 1st versus November 1st is going to be substantially different. The fact he didn't let that affect his performances and didn't play into the media noise about it, because they did try and make this a story a few times. Hey, what's going on with Will, blah, blah, blah. It seemed like he was comfortable with it. Yeah, he was comfortable with it. The Sharks were comfortable with it. They got a deal done. Now, again, expansion teams, again, they can pick up Will, all that type of stuff. But I think, you know, he did himself a real credit and a real service. And the fact that he sits where he does in Sharks history in terms of games played at fullback is extremely unique. And I think he deserves an 8.5. I think his season was very good. But again, I give him an 8.5. But, you know, I place his season probably above Nico's. But I still want to change at fullback. So what does that say again?
You're crazy, man's what it says.
Like,
I like that. I like it. I think you're right about the way he carried himself. There was a lot of pressure on him. As recent as, I want to say, gosh, it might have been week 2 of the finals when I was doing press. Yeah. And I said to him, can we talk about the contract stuff off air? And he said, I'd prefer not to, but, you know, if you want to, I can, you know, fudge an answer. I was like, no, of course not. Like, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I have a hunch he's going to stay, but he obviously hadn't been signed then. So he played his way through it. The criticism he cops is near the Nico level, if not higher. And for a large part of our season, he was our best player. So I understand why people want a different style of player. And if they get Liam Eisen, he'll be a different style player. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't try that, but it is a very fascinating situation. And I do think at the moment, based on the year he had, I don't think that Liam Eisen walks into round 1 going, this is my jumper. Now, if he has a hell of an off season and for some reason Will doesn't, it's a different story. I think Liam is probably the long-term future, especially given that Will signed a 1-year deal, and there will be a lot of, well, there'll be many clubs after him, I think. And I think that Perth is the most likely one because they'll get him for a decent deal and they can spend more money on their spine elsewhere. So we'll see what happens there. But I did want to remind you about his debut game. His debut game was in 2019 against Penrith at Cronulla, and he was a late call-up, and he pushed Dugan to 5'8", who partnered with Sean Johnson. Is that right? No, sorry. Josh Dugan played in the wing. I apologize. So it was Sean Johnson and Chad Townsend. Josh Dugan went to the wing. The other winger was your boy Fecky. We had Bronson Sherry and Josh Morris in the centres. But what I remember about that game is Josh Dugan scoring the winning try in the 75th minute, but it was started and set up by Will Kennedy. So go back and watch that highlight reel. Didn't get the try assist, but he started it with a magical pass. So he was on from day one, and we'll see what happens in the coming year for him. It's going to be quite fascinating. I know a lot of our listeners are very torn on it. Some are like, no. Some are yes. Some are in between. So it's up to Will. See what happens there.
My question to you, mate, is round one, do you think there's a world where Ison actually gets the number one jersey?
There is a world, but I think that world kind of changed a little bit given the form Will had this year. So there is a world. Yes, there is a world.
I can't see Ison getting the jersey in round one. Now, I'm not saying he deserves the jersey in round one, but I'm just saying that, like, let's say they both have a great preseason, all that type of stuff. Like, I think it's Will's jersey to lose still is what I'm getting at.
I agree. And I would start with Will, especially given where Liam has come from with the injury. And I think that's the way Fitz will go. But I also would not rule out the fact that it's a new year. We're going to try something different. The only person we can get rid of in the spine is the number one. That's not me saying that. That's the general person. It is. It's ridiculous. Yeah. When you look at that Dally tally, I think up until round 23 was in the top five. In the top five, though, until like
overall.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, man. We don't have time for that now. We can do a Will Kennedy episode next week if you like. Next up, we have Cam McInnes, played 22 games, and he started all of those and obviously had the severe, serious injury in front of our eyes against the Roosters, I believe.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me too, because, again, I like the style of football we played when Cam wasn't there. And I was calling for changes when we went through that period as a team, that I wanted to see Colquhoun start and mix it up, because I think when Cam's been his most effective for us, it was 2022 when he was coming off the bench, that leg speed, going 100 miles an hour. I feel bad about this one, Sam, but I'm going to give him a 6. I just think that if you look at the style of football that we played, and I think when we play our best football, it's when we've got size, power, and we're getting quick, fast play the balls and all that type of stuff. Now, Cam gets you the fast play the balls and that, but he doesn't have that. He doesn't draw in as many defenders as Fanua Blake, Hazelton, that type of thing, which then allows Blake to shoot out of dummy half, right? And also, I feel like when we have Cam in there, there's a little bit more side to side passing. It's not as direct. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to give him a 6.
Okay, next up, we have the New Zealand international, Ronaldo Mulitalo. Played 26 games, missed just one, scored 17 tries. Hell of a season from Ronnie. What did you make of him this year?
Yeah, look, I think Ronnie was one of our best players all season. There was a couple of those moments, as you're always going to get with Ronnie. Yeah. But I think when we talk about places in Sharks history, Ronnie has a unique opportunity to finish, his career with the Sharks. And there's some talk that he wants to go play rugby over in Japan, stuff like that, because his body gets too banged up playing in the NRL. But I think I'm so glad he's re-signed with us, because he could have easily gone to Brisbane, the Dolphins, or anyone up in Queensland, because he's got family up there. And then he just becomes another player that played at the Sharks. And, we loved him for a few years, like a Jack Bird in a sense, right? When he was here, we loved him. Then he kind of faded away and you just didn't really think of him, right? But the fact that he stays, I think that it's going to put him down in Sharks history as one of our best wingers of all time. I love his aggression. I love everything about Ronnie. I give Ronnie an 8.5. I think he was one of our best players all season.
Nice. All right, next up, a person who is also a New Zealand international. He played 23 games. He started 20 of those, but his last 3 games were off the bench. I give you Britton Nickera.
It wasn't Britain's best season, and I have been a staunch Nakora Island resident since his under-20s days. He's been I remember how excited I was when Sean Johnson got him that starting gig. And I remember at the time it was him or Sorensen, all that type of stuff. I was like, I love this Nakora guy in the 20s. I really hope he gets it. He then got it, and he hadn't looked back. This year, I felt like he came back to the pack a little bit in terms of his impact on some of the performances that we had. Stop-start with injury. And I know that you said he played 23 games. It feels like some of those games, and this is just off the top of my head, I'd have no facts to back this up, but it feels like some of those games he didn't finish, or HIAs, that type of stuff, right? So it just felt like a stop-start year where he didn't get his momentum. But watching him play for the Kiwis yesterday, I saw a few of those runs and things like that, and I was like, wow, this guy's got it, getting it back. And we saw it that first finals game, I think it was against the Roosters, where he came off the bench, changed the game, changed the momentum. So for that drags him up a little bit. I'd give him a 7. No, 6.5. Right. He's been downgraded.
6.5. Off the bench, 5 games. Middle forward, you would say, Hohepa Buru.
That's a very hard one to score. And I know that I said that I will do these ones, but again, I think his form in New South Wales Cup was very good. He did look good when he came in the first grade. He made us look a little bit different. I like the fact that he can play multiple positions. I was calling for him to be the utility if we were to play a utility. But yeah, not a big enough sample size, because even when he got on the field, it felt like he didn't have a lot of big stints in terms of minutes. We'll give him a 6.
All right, next up, this gentleman might have been my lowest ranking Shark, if I am correct. If I'm not, I apologize to him and to our audience. 24 games, only scored 3 tries. Jesse Ramian.
It's funny because when you said that, I was thinking, who could this be? And then when you said the 5 tries or 3 tries, whatever it was, I thought immediately in my head, this is going to be Jesse. So, look, he had a huge offseason last year with some personal things that went on with his family. He's now just got married on the weekend. So, again, life is turning around, looking great for him off the field. I think on the field, it just didn't hit the heights. Last year, he was one of the form centers in the competition. And, he was on the verge of, him and Bradman Best were kind of tussling it out for a spot for New South Wales. Best obviously got it, a few years ago and has kicked on ever since. Now he's in the Australian team. But yeah, Jesse just seemed to have a little bit of noise around him all season. Just couldn't really find that momentum. Didn't look happy in a lot of games too. I thought he looked a little bit frustrated at times. I think, in terms of where he should be an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for us, but I think this year he's probably about a 5. The fact that people were calling for Hiroti over him towards the end of the season, I didn't agree with, but there was a reason for the noise. Yeah, his performances weren't at the same level as the year before.
All right, the man that saved the season twice, I'd say once definitely. The second time was more just capped it off. We were there to see it. Mr. Toby Rudolph, 6 games starting, 17 in total.
Yeah, this is a tough one too, because the lows with Toby are low, and the highs, like when he scores that try and has great impact and was really taken to that role of coming off the back fence and really powerful runs. And then that becomes your expectations. And then it feels like you're lured into this false sense of security, because he does that, like against Canberra and the Roosters, and looked fantastic. And then against the Storm, we don't see it, right? And again, it's the odd error here, the penalty there. It's just a level of frustration that sometimes comes along with being a Toby Rudolph supporter. Is he off contract on the 1st of November?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I think his contract situation will be coming up soon, right? So if it's not now, it might be the next one. I think it's going to be quite an interesting situation there. I think we'll have to wait and see on that one. But in terms of this season, his back end was a lot better than his start. I think he gets a 7.
Yeah, nice. I thought it was a pretty good year for him. I'm not his biggest on-field fan, big fan off the field, but I thought he was pretty good in a lot of games and really dominant. It's like what you said. We go down to Melbourne and we need all these guys just to roll forward. And it felt like Fanua, Blake, and Siffer didn't have anyone rolling forward with him. And one of those guys you expect is Toby, and that leaves a bit of a sour taste. But he had, I thought, a pretty good season too. I think I might have gone 7.5 for him. So
he's 29. He'll be 30 in January, and he is off contract on November 1st. Are you signing that deal, keeping him around?
I would do a short-term, not break the bank deal, absolutely. But I think that other clubs would throw him a bit more money, and that would be up for him to decide what to do. I couldn't go more than, you could maybe talk me into a 2-year deal, but no more than that. And it wouldn't be for the money he's on now. So I'm happy to do something, but it would have to be very beneficial for the club.
Yeah, and it's also and I know this shouldn't be a major factor, but it is a massive factor. He is an incredible glue guy off the field.
Yeah.
And he brings the guys together. He's extremely popular within that playing group. If he was to leave, let's say that we did lowball him or anything like that, which it's not the Sharks' way. I think if he was to leave the club, it would be very amicable. And I don't think there'd be dramas there. I think that if he got a better deal elsewhere, I think everyone would be happy for him. I don't think it would be a sour situation, but it could have potential to have some disabling effects around the club because he's such a big personality.
I hear what you're saying. I think I'm disagreeing with you, but I don't have a reason. I couldn't give you a reason why that would be different to what you're saying. I don't think I don't think it would be I get what you're saying though. I do. You're right.
He's everyone's best friend, right?
Yeah, kind of. But
in a sense, you see him hanging out with Katoa, you see him hanging out with Raymond.
Oh,
you see him around everybody, right?
You see him at the fan events. He's the loveliest guy. He's always been super kind to us. He's the best. But if he gets a okay offer from somewhere else,
it can't be a determining factor. Yeah, you're not going to bump up your offer to him because you think he is a good off-the-field addition, right? Whereas a guy like Cam McInnes, he's a standard setter, things like that. That's extremely valuable too. But again, what I'm saying here is let's say that we have the criticism of the Sharks recently has been we're being too stable. It's the same guys, experience, blah, blah, blah. You take out Cam, you lose 200 games of NRL experience, work ethic, standard settings, blah, blah, blah. You take out a personality guy as well. It's just it might be the shake-up that the Sharks need because, again, we've been so same for a while. So I think his contract situation is going to be extremely interesting is what I'm saying.
I think I guess I didn't have the words to say before, but now I do, I think, is that we probably oversell and overthink he's a great personality, everyone gets along with him, because from my evidence, everyone gets along with everyone.
Yeah. Not
everyone's the life of the party, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would be destabilizing, I'll put it that way. But we'll see what happens. As I said, happy for him to stay, but it would have to be beneficial for us as a club. Next up, we have 8 tries in 11 games. Sam Stone Street.
Oh, I wish I listened to your episode with Clinton now because I would have loved to get your thoughts on where you thought Sam ended up.
Fresh, and also why you listen to the show. Come on, you're killing me.
I think, again, he starts the year with all the potential in the world. He got that starting spot. Katoa was out injured. Unfortunately, he had his own injury, which kind of held him back, and he wasn't able to kind of get back into the team and to hold his spot back.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man, because it might have been more of a battle. Sione would have maybe played New South Wales Cup, or they might have eased him in, but it was sort of 1 for 1 almost, or maybe there was a week in between. Yeah. But it was kind of this guy's out, but this guy's back. So it was a good point.
Yeah, I think Hiroti might have played 1 game there, and then Katoa was back. So it was so clean that switch over, right?
Yeah.
Again, that side of the field and all that type of stuff, right? So, yeah, I probably would have liked to have seen a little bit more from him in the limited opportunities that he got. Again, I just think we were such a better team with Sione, with his carries and things like that, I was kind of hoping Sam would make that jump because I've seen it in the lower grades. I've seen what he can do. I think I'm probably going to be a little bit harder on him, probably because I have seen him perform so well in the lower grades, and I was potentially expecting with Katoa's injury that he could have made that jersey his. and had more of a claim to it when he returned from injury. I think the fact that when he returned from injury, it was not even a conversation. It was just a given that Sione kept the jersey. I think spoke about both players. I give Sam a 6.5. I just think there's so much room for improvement there. And I think it's going to be such a huge year for him coming up this year.
Yeah, if I didn't give him a 7 then last week, I would have given him a 7 now, because I just think that he didn't let us down. Like, he scored a hell of a lot of tries and he was dangerous at times. But as you said, there's an upside there we need to see, and there is room for improvement, whether it's kick defense, whether it's defense. But you know what? He's only played 15 games or whatever it is. So he's a baby, and we'll see what that off season does for him. Now, one of our favorites played 24 games, only starting 7, but absolute monster beast mode, Sifa Talakai.
I think he is officially my favorite Shark at the moment. I think what he does when he's on the field for us is incredible. I thought he was going to be a chance to get the 13 jersey when Cam went down. That didn't happen. I think we've seen the end of him as a center. I don't want to see that in 2026 or ever again. I just don't think it's fair to him. He's changed his body shape a few times to get leaner to go out wide, then to put more size on to go back in the middle, and then we keep tossing and turning him back between the two. I think center is such a unique position that he's shown he can do it in the past, but I think his best form for us is in the middle, going with Fanua Blake. I think there is some thought that we should be having about, does he become the second prop for us in terms of 13 and prop are the same position these days. You see it with the Kangaroo squad that they've named. All the locks there are probably going to be the starting front rowers for the Kangaroos on this tour. So I think there's a chance where he could be that guy that starts for us. I think he changed games for us when he came on. His momentum is off the charts. I would have liked to have seen him get more minutes, but that's not a criticism of him. His centers games weren't the best. This is a tough one. If I gave Ronnie an 8.5, I'd probably give Sifa the same, because he turned so many games for us when he came off the bench. Like, if he didn't play in some of those performances, I don't think we'd win the game, because the momentum was not on our side.
Shark for life is what I would say.
Hope so.
Braden Trindle, 26 games and a bunch of try assists, line break assists. And
again, the stats looked
great. What have we got here? We've got some 7 tries as well for Braden Trindle.
So my question for you, mate, is who do you think had a better season, Nico or Trindle?
Nico had a better season, but Trindle was more effective. Make that of what you will.
Yeah,
only just, but
yeah.
Trindle sort of grabbed the headlines, whereas Nico was just really, really solid,
consistent, right?
Absolutely.
And I think Trindle owned some really big moments for us, and some of the more flashier moments, right? But there was talk somewhere that he was under a bit of pressure internally. In terms,
it was
his spot.
Probably around the time of the Brisbane loss. And the big talk, I believe, there was a bunch of guys that were spoken to in the room with the whole team. I would imagine Trindle was one of them. And we saw a change after that talk.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the fact that he got that pressure that was placed upon him, I think speaks of it where he was at that time. And again, he wasn't the only one that got called out and all that type of stuff. No. But I think the moments that he did own, like he really owned them, and we looked great when he was doing it. So that kind of skews it for me a bit, because he did step up and had some really clutch performances, and really, we looked really good when he was playing. He's good. But when he was off the mark a bit, it was kind of like a Toby thing, right? The bad performances or the not so good ones were noticeably different from his best ones, right? Whereas, like a Blake Brayley or Fanua Blake, their best and worst game are pretty close together. And I think with Trindle, we saw a little bit of that gap this year. I think I'd give him a 7.5 for the season. Glad we got that contract sorted. It's all now in the past, because Joey Johnson's calling him $1 million halfback. You see what Luke Metcalf is rumored to be getting offered, when Luke Metcalf's played 41 games in his NRL career, and he's going to be 27 next year, right? That's crazy money. So the fact we got Trindle, we got Trindle on the deal that we did, I think it was good business, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Chris Vaiella, 2 games, including a try on debut.
I have to give him a 5. There just wasn't enough game vision of him to see.
Well, you don't have to give him a score, but you're welcome.
The games that he played, he performed well. He didn't look out of place. I think he was 19th man or 18th man so many times over the last 2 years. It was great to see him finally get that spot. But yeah, look, there's a chance he takes Jesse's spot next year if he can have a big off season. And again, when we talk about contracts, Jesse's off contract as well, right? So there's a chance that he could be a starter next year, but we're going to need to see a little bit more from him.
There's a chance that some kids underneath him might step above him as well.
100%, right? Because those kids beneath him have signed, I think, longer-term deals than he has.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a real interesting situation what we do, because the raps on Michael Gabriel that we keep hearing from the club, it's astronomical. And when you see him play, it really reminds me of like Michael Jennings.
And there are 3 other blokes of various ages, to be fair, coming through the ranks who, like, we won't keep them all. So, but for once, our centre positions in the lower levels in the junior ranks are really good. So,
yeah,
see what happens there with Chris. And last, but certainly not least, the man that in his second last game of the season kicked for himself to score 21 games, all starting, a little bit of injury there for him, Teague Wilton.
Yeah, another guy who had that stop-start year, right, where it just didn't feel like he had that momentum. And I think with Teague, I have such high expectations for him because I think he has that rep player, ceiling. But I just looked it up the other day, and I'm looking at it right now. Teague is 26 now. Like, it doesn't feel like Teague is 26. Like, it still feels like he's that guy that's making his way and finding it. He's played over 100 first-grade games now. I think next year is going to be a real defining year for him. And it's the chance where he can go, all right, well, I can just be a 200, 300 NRL game first grade and have a really solid career, or I can take that next step into representative teams. And I think that's the year that we're looking at for Teague next year is where does he go and where do we think that's going to land? This year I thought was probably going to be that year, to be honest, and we didn't quite see those highs. But a solid year, just didn't have the highs that I was kind of expecting. But some of the games that he played, especially in defense, like he was absolutely hurting people, right? So I think he had a very solid season. I have no qualms with how he played. I'm glad, again, we've re-signed him. I think he's a future leader at the club. I do think he has player potential. I just didn't see it this year. I give him a 7. But again, I really, if you said to me what I expected to rate him coming to this year, I would have said an 8 or a 9. So a little bit, I want a little bit more from Teague.
Yeah. We did notice when he was not there, I'll say that. Oh, sorry. When he came back from not being there, it was very noticeable.
So yeah, and maybe I've got I was actually so impressed with his defense in Melbourne. And
I know what you're going to say.
Then he had that issue where he got bumped off, and then that try with Jerome Hughes scored. But before
I believe it was him and Burns. Colquhoun, wasn't it? Oh, Burns.
Yeah, sorry. I think it was Cole. I think you're right. It was Colquhoun. But
so that's not 2 guys you'd expect to miss a broken-bodied Hughes. This is one of those things, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I was watching Teague in that game, and I was so impressed with how hard he was hitting people. And I think he had just done it the tackle before too, from memory. I've killed a lot of brain cells between now and then, as you can hear from me how I'm talking today. But yeah, I want a little bit more from Teague, and yeah, just didn't get it. Do you remember what you gave him?
No, but I would imagine it would have been
like it's a pass mark.
Oh, easily for me, it would have been 7.5 to 8. Like I liked what he did. I thought that he was mostly on. I did have that memory of that missed tackle, but I can't judge a guy on his whole season on one tackle. Yeah, as important 100%. As that missed tackle was, I can't do that. Definitely 7.5 might have been 8. I just think that everything he does is really classy and tough. And again, I think he's going to have a long career with us. And it's interesting what you said. It reminded me of his uncle. His uncle played 300 games and didn't play rep footy to any great degree from what I can recall. But Teague has the chance to kind of one up that if he improves. But he has to improve. But yeah.
Well, it's like the Blake Brayley situation, mate. Like Blake could have been on that trajectory to do that, right? And now, because he took the step this year, he took the leap. And a lot of people were saying, well, he's been, the Sharks player of the year the last couple of years. Like, this is as good as it's going to be. but he showed that he still had a lot more in him. And I think if you were to pick a State of Origin team tomorrow, he's the Blues number 9. So it's on him to maintain that form into next season and to get himself in the State of Origin. But we always hear about the Sharks. They don't have rep players. They don't have the quality, blah, blah, blah. This is now these guys that have been together for so long. They've got to actually make that jump for us. Otherwise, it's going to be very costly for Craig Fitzgibbon and his legacy, because he's backed these guys and kept this squad together, banking on that improvement. So I think Teague's one of those guys. But I sound like I'm being critical on Teague. It's just more so I have such high expectations for how good he could be.
I would say, though, on what you just said, if you take maybe Raymond out of the equation, the majority of them have gotten better each year under Fitzgibbon. Whether it's Will Kennedy, whether it's Braden Trindle, Blake Brayley. So,
I agree.
Yeah, interesting one. All right, that was Kieran's wrap of players this year. Now, before we go, we're going to do a random Shark of the Week. Don't know if it's an easy one or not. It's slightly before your favorite time, but it's not someone you don't know. And we'll just give it a shot. And so if you haven't seen this before, it's Random Shark of the Week, where I just give Kieran some clues and he jumps in. Usually it's not very long. And he proves that he is a big Sharks nut. Emphasis on the word nuts. Now, this person played 96 NRL games in total. 96. The big 9-6, just 4 off the big 3. So 96 games. He played at 2 different clubs. I can tell you that he debuted at Cronulla and then he went to another club. And I can tell you he spent 4 years at the Sharks and 3 years at the other club. He played in 3 final series, only 1 with the Sharks. He played 57 games in total for Cronulla, 39 elsewhere. He played under the coaches of Arthur Beetson, John Lang, and Alan Fitzgibbon at Cronulla. Wow. Beetson, Lang, Fitzgibbon. I will give you this clue. He only played 1 game under Alan Fitzgibbon. I can tell you that he scored. This should be easy to do. He scored 11 tries in his NRL career. He only scored 7 with Cronulla. What else can I tell you about this gentleman? Did he play any rep footy? So he played for City in 1996. He's a De La Salle Caringbar Jr. He also played 1 game for Australia. And he won that game, and he scored a try as well for Australia. 1 game for this gentleman. And he is a forward. Anything come to mind? I'll give you the era that he... No, but good guess. So at Cronulla, he played...
Sean Ryan.
No? Sean Ryan played for Australia? Maybe Super League.
I think he's Super League, yeah. That's where I'm going with this.
So he played for Cronulla from 1990 to 1995.
Oh, mate, you've absolutely stumped me on this one. You've picked someone from like the year I was born.
one game in 1990. No games in 1991. So the year that punk broke, he was listening to grunge music. 1992, 21 games, the most he would play for the Sharks. 93, 17, 95, 18 before he went to another Sydney club to play 3 seasons there. I can tell you that with the Super League season, as I've suggested, he was not at the Sharks. So not too many people turned down that big money, but this gentleman did. And we may get a story on that soon on this show, perhaps.
You say he was a forward?
You could say he was a forward.
Yeah, Aaron Raper?
Aaron Raper is your random shark of the week. Not that random, quite a legend. But Aaron
Yeah.
Raper is your man this week. Well done, Kieran. I know it's not your favorite era. I know.
Well, I love the Super League stuff, but the early 90s is that's very testing for me, right? So you did well to start me. I will say when you first started off and you were talking about they played, I thought Brett Howland. That's where I was going, the Whippet. But no, Aaron Raper. He's I've been listening to that Super League podcast, the Rugby League Digest, and they go down and they break it all. It goes over a number of years. Newman was on it a couple of times, I think.
He was.
And Aaron Raper is a very discussed player on that topic, right? Because, again, the whole playing state of origin was left on the bench, whole sorts of stuff, right? So very interesting career.
As I've already hinted 5 minutes ago, if you stay tuned to SharkCast Pod, if all the worlds align and stars align, you'll be hearing more from Aaron Raper. So stay tuned on that one. But I thought I'd throw in a little nugget there for you. Aaron Raper is your random shark of the week. Keiran, we got to get going. We got to get out of here, but appreciate your time. We'll be back soon, maybe as soon as next week. We're going to do a bunch of stuff with you over summer, which is going to be fun. And stay tuned to SharkCast Pod because we have a bunch of things planned for you, which we will get closer to revealing. In fact, I just revealed one of them just then, but another project that we're going to work on, which Keiran will be involved in, working out the logistics of that. And I'll talk to you about that, Keiran, off air. So, SharkCast Pod, you know where to follow us, you know where to like us, share it around with your mates, and we will be back before you know it. SharkCast Pod brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the Royal Mighty Yacht Club in Port Hacking, Jason Hawes at Cripps and Cripps Real Estate, and we get our coffee from Mr. Paisley's up Cronulla, and let's go.